Welcome. I am so thrilled to host the Climate Voters for Harris-Walz Kickoff Call. Today, we are bringing Harris for President to really launch Climate Voters. And in September is when we are going to officially kick things off. And we need your help in making this as big and as active as it can possibly be. My name is Sweta Chakraborty. I am a behavioral scientist specializing in how to use the science of communication to drive behavioral change, especially as it relates to solving the climate crisis. I'm also the CEO of North America for We Don't Have Time. It's the world's largest media platform for climate action. We are thrilled to be supporting and amplifying today's event. For those of you with friends, families, colleagues who could not make it to this event live, know that there will be a replay and you will be able to watch it on demand at wedon'thavetime.org. So we urgently need you. That's why we're hosting this call today. We need to bring all hands on deck to really move action forward. This is a critical moment in time, and that urgency is encapsulated not only in my organization's name, but it's also the reality of what we're facing today. The window of action to veer off this trajectory that we're on in terms of hitting these climate tipping points that's going to just result in Earth systems collapsing, this window is really rapidly closing. And it's terrifying. I don't deny that, but it's also truly motivating. Take it from me as a behavioral scientist. We can absolutely mobilize now. We can move, we can encourage our friends and families to move, we can mobilize our communities, we can mobilize as global citizens, and we can solve this climate crisis and actually write a new script for the future. Imagine the script, one that is cleaner, one that is more breathable, one that is more equitable, a society that we can build together that is better than anything we've actually ever built before. If that's not motivation for action, I don't know what is. It's exciting. And it takes you. It takes you as American citizens who can and will vote climate up and down the ballot come November. And also you as a global citizen who recognizes that climate change does not respect political borders. I said recently in global news media that the single most impactful action that we can now take to ensure that we collectively overcome this global climate crisis is ensuring a Harris-Walz presidency come November. So if nothing else, vote, but also join the climate voters movement because there's so much more that you can do. And you can sign up right now if you haven't already at kamalaharris.com/climate voters. The second thing is communicate. We know from behavioral science that those who trust us listen to us. Who can you influence in your network? Ask yourselves that and communicate with them. Share today with them. Who from the lineup today is most appealing to those in your network? Share those top line messages and ask your friends and family to join this movement. Ask them to share it with their friends and family. Let's spread this excitement because it is palpable. And it's palpable because we're just days away from the DNC. We're less than 90 days away from this election. It's critical we bring Harris into the office to build upon the historic climate legislation that she supported during her time as vice president. Her record and Walz's climate record have been solid, as we will hear through this afternoon, and the ambitions that are in the agenda, the climate agenda, actually commensurate to the risks of what we are going to be facing. And that's the kind of leadership we need to truly overcome this climate crisis. I have not only supported Kamala since her first bid for president, not just because of climate and not just because she shares the same first name as my grandmother, who if she was alive today would get such a kick out of this. It's also the first thing I said to her when we met. But because she is the president of the moment. This is a president we need right now, not just because of the climate risks we face or because of the ascendancy of women, but really because we're ushering in a future society that looks like the leaders who run it. Representation matters. And this is the president for this moment. And we are not going to go back. So we have such an incredible lineup of speakers. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Our first Harris for President climate champion really needs no introduction. No one has done more to battle the climate crisis than him. Please join me in welcoming Secretary John Kerry. Sir, over to you.
Muted. Am I unmuted? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, great. Fantastic. Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you for your efforts. Thank you for helping to organize this and for being part of this battle. And thank you to all of you. A lot of good friends are part of this discussion as we launch the Climate Voters for Harris. And I'm really happy to be here with Jay Inslee, my great pal from many endeavors here, Eddie Markey, my senator and friend for a long period of time, Gina McCarthy, and I can run through the list. This is a super gathering of people who really know what they're talking about and who have done amazing work in order to kind of put America back on track, which was the promise that President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris brought to the table. So we are now at a critical moment. We know that. And the reason this issue animates so many of us is because every single person on this call understands that this is an existential issue. And even when we say that it's existential, I know a lot of people's eyes gloss over. They don't really, tune in completely. But Mother Nature is making it clear to us all around the world, every single day, what the consequences are of ignoring the science and not moving fast enough to bring us to scale and bring us to the speed we need for the energy transition that was promised by almost 200 nations when they gathered in Dubai last year. So 7 million are dying right now because of bad quality of air. Millions of people are moving because they can't live where they used to live. It's getting hotter. They can't produce the food. The water is disappearing. And we're beginning to see the harbingers of what comes if we don't move fast enough in the next months, really in the next few years, as the 2030 date looms over all of us. So there are things we can do about this. I don't want anybody to feel powerless. We're not. And we've seen in the last weeks, obviously, this incredible surge of energy into the campaign. But we also know that you can't waste a day. There are 80 days till this election. We need every single one of them. And I can tell you that, having been a nominee and run for president, every day counts. So we absolutely have to move faster. We have to stop the amazing amount of carbon that is still going up into the atmosphere and doing damage. We have to accelerate using better, cleaner technology, which is available today. Not all of what we want is available, but enough is available to be able to meet the goal of 2030. And we're still ignoring that. And finally, of course, we can use diplomacy, which is critical to bringing the rest of the world along in order to be able to be successful. I will just share with everybody, because of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, we had a unique, unprecedented representation at the Conference of the Parties of the UN in Dubai. And we succeeded for the first time ever in agreeing among nations that we must transition away from fossil fuel, that we have to accelerate it in this decade. We have to do it according to the plans for 2050 net zero. And we have to do it according to the science, which means trying to keep 1.5 degrees alive. That's the challenge. But, Donald Trump just yesterday, the day before, was attacking windmills, not for reasons that Don Quixote attacked them. He's attacking them because he says that they kill bald eagles and they give you cancer. And what's worse is he says he loves coal. And he had a meeting recently at Mar-a-Lago where he's raising money with all these high-powered energy leaders. And he told them outright, give me the money I need to get elected and I'll do whatever you want. So my friends, the challenge here could simply not be more clear. We need to re-energize our economy because the single greatest gain from addressing the climate crisis is putting people to work, is putting new technologies out into the marketplace. And the United States of America is more positioned to be able to lead in that endeavor than any other nation on the planet. So that's why the IRA, which we celebrate now, and partly in this telephone call, is so critical to America. Donald Trump has said he wants to destroy the IRA, get rid of it. He has said he wants to pull back out of Paris. I mean, you couldn't have a starker contrast, obviously. And we know that when we get to work and do what we know how to do, we can win this battle. There's no question in my mind, but only if we speed up, only if we stay on track, which gives greater meaning to we're not going back. We're not going back. Not back to the point where a president walks away from the rest of the world, where he drags America along with him, despite the fact that governors, I know Jay Inslee and others, fought to keep us in Paris, even as the president took us out. And that made a huge difference to our credibility on a global basis. So, my friends, very simple. Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, and Tim's terrific. I know him from when I was running in 2004. He actually got kicked out of a book rally where he took students to, and he was so angry about it. The next day he went and volunteered for me, became an incredible leader in our campaign, and I'm proud to say that I was able to help him when he first ran to Congress. He's terrific, and Kamala is 100% committed to having the United States of America continue to lead. So I leave you with this. If you have a doubt about what needs to be done, please go back and quickly touch base with the history of Earth Day 1970. You know, we had fires, rivers burning. We had, you couldn't see across America, and certainly across cities even, because of the air quality. Well, when 20 million Americans came out of their homes, they all joined together to say, we're going to change that. And they targeted the 12 worst votes in Congress. Yeah, it comes down to voting. And in those 12 votes, the 12 worst votes, they labeled them the dirty dozen. They defeated 7 of the 12. You know what happened? The United States Congress passed Clean Air Act, safe drinking water, marine mammal protection, coastal zone management, endangered species, and we created the Environmental Protection Agency of the United States. That is what Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are going to protect, lead us into the future. But we have to do the work these next 80 days. And we have a team here that is uniquely qualified to talk to America and to make clear all the upside benefits of addressing the future. So thank you for being part of Harris for president and of our voters for the climate. It's going to be an honor to work with all of you for these 80 days. Let's go get the job done.
Thank you, Secretary Kerry, and thank you for the legacy of climate action that you leave behind and that we will absolutely progress on. With that, I am going to move us next to Jake Schwartz. He is the Interim Climate Voters Director for Harris for President. Jake, please.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that kind introduction. And thank you, Secretary Kerry. Hello, all. I am Jake Schwartz, the Interim Climate Voters Director on the Harris-Walz campaign. And I'm humbled and inspired by the support of everyone on this call today. We all here are climate voters, capital C, capital V. We are a critical part of the Democratic coalition. Let's show the party and the country why that is. It's not just because we vote for the climate, but because we organize for it. That means every single person on this call filling out the volunteer link, they'll be in the chat, or texting climate to 30330 to sign up to get more involved and talk to folks about this issue and about this incredible ticket. It also means posting on social media today to celebrate the IRA anniversary. Today is the 2nd anniversary, and the fact that Harris-Walz is a proud climate ticket. And it also means talking to your friends, family, neighbors, anyone who cares about a livable climate, clean water, good green jobs, and asking them to fill out this volunteer form as well. Climate voters no longer just vote for the Democratic ticket, but fuel the energy that actually help us win. So on that note, here are a couple campaign top lines of the really exciting momentum we've had in the last couple of weeks. So just last week, the Harris-Walz ticket kicked off a Battleground States tour, rallying electric crowds of 14,000 in Pennsylvania, 12,000 in Michigan, in Wisconsin, 15,000 in Michigan, and 15,000 in Arizona, highlighting the choice facing voters between, on one hand, the Trump-Vance agenda to roll back Americans' freedoms, and on the other hand, the Harris-Walz vision for the future, where everyone has the opportunity to not just get by, but get ahead. The joy and the grassroots enthusiasm for Team Harris-Walz has truly been contagious. In just the 24 hours after Governor Walz joined the ticket, Team Harris-Walz raised $36 million, majority of which came just from grassroots donations. Now, there's no question this is going to be a very close race. Polls show it neck and neck, but Vice President Harris and Governor Walz have the right message and the momentum on their side. And together, truly all of us working together, we can get this done. So now I'm proud to introduce my friend Tiernan Sittenfeld, the Vice President of the League of Conservation Voters. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Jake. Hi, everyone. Thanks to all of you for being on this Zoom today, and happy second anniversary to the Inflation Reduction Act. I'm Tiernan Sittenfeld with the League of Conservation Voters Action Fund, and I am so excited to be here with all of you to celebrate the biggest thing we have ever done on climate and to help kick off Climate Voters for Harris. LCV Action Fund has proudly endorsed Vice President Harris to be our next president, and we are all in to help elect the Harris-Walz ticket because the contrast in a presidential race has never been starker, the stakes have never been higher, and the need for more climate progress has never been greater. The Biden-Harris administration has done more on climate and conservation than any presidential administration ever, and by far. The record $370 billion in investments in climate, clean energy, and environmental justice in the Inflation Reduction Act, also known as the President's Affordable Clean Energy Plan, is supercharging our clean energy economy with nearly $1 trillion in investments and over 300,000 clean energy jobs so far, all while saving consumers money. The Biden-Harris administration has also taken more than 300 other actions to protect the air we drink, to protect the air we breathe, the water we drink, and the lands that we cherish. But as all of you know all too well, all of this incredible progress is at risk. Even as last month was the hottest month ever recorded on Earth, Donald Trump and JD Vance continue to cater to polluters at every step, promising big oil CEOs they can do whatever they want in exchange for $1 billion and wanting to be a dictator so they can drill on day one. So we have to win on Election Day, which is only 81 days from today. Toward that end, LCV is recruiting our members to volunteer for the Harris-Walz campaign through our Green Roots program. I'm very proud to say that many of our organizers are on this call right now, and they can help get you involved directly with the campaign. We're also raising money through our Give Green program with our friends at NRDC Action Votes. So of course, we hope that you'll support the campaign directly at givegreen.com. So thank you to all of the incredible speakers. Thank you to all of the attendees. We are with you at every step. I can't wait to see you out there on the campaign trail. And now back to you, Sweta.
Thank you for those remarks, Tiernan. I am so thrilled to next introduce Gina McCarthy. She is the former U.S. Environmental Protection Agency Administrator and one of my favorite Bostonians. Over to you, Administrator McCarthy.
Well, this is an exciting opportunity. I'm so excited to be here with everybody. I just want to start by saying that we live in kind of crazy times, but it is so amazing the opportunities that we have before us. So let me start by saying I'm not just excited to be here with good friends and to wish also happy birthday to our toddler, which is the Inflation Reduction Act, otherwise known as the Affordable Clean Air Plan. You know, the Inflation Reduction Act really is the most significant investments in jobs, climate action, and clean energy in the entire world. The IRA has created more than 330,000 jobs, all while helping hardworking families breathe cleaner air and save money on their energy bills, build skills that continue to grow, companies that are growing local economies. U.S. clean energy is growing thanks to the Inflation Reduction Act. There are so many groundbreaking climate actions across the country. So today is about celebrating the wins and the progress we've made with our panelists today. That's right, I am fired up and I'm so excited to be joined by three incredibly amazing people. So we have my good friend, Governor Inslee is here. I want to thank him for his leadership in Washington State, where he has been a North Star on climate for years and arguably has the best policies of any state in the nation on climate. Governor Inslee played a pivotal role in setting the framework of investment incentives through the IRA, which have opened the floodgates for renewable energy across the country. Governor, we're going to protect the climate commitment in November. You know that. And we have Congresswoman Melanie Stansbury, who represents New Mexico's 1st congressional district, and she's been serving on the House Committee on Natural Resources, the House Committee on Oversight and Accountability. She's dedicated her entire life's work to protecting New Mexico's precious natural resources and bringing good paying union jobs to her state that create equitable climate action. And we have my buddy, Mayor Bibb here. Mayor, you are such a rock star. I've worked at every level of government, and I can tell you that it's cities like Cleveland that are leading the way. I had the good fortune of being in your city not too long ago. Yours is the first city in Ohio to commit to 100% renewables by 2050, and you've been driving solar expansion, especially in low-income neighborhoods, so I congratulate you. So let me begin, but with Governor Inslee. Governor, you know the IRA really has been a game changer. Are folks in your great state of Washington grabbing those opportunities and seeing and feeling the benefits?
Gina, thanks for that inspirational start to this discussion. I will tell you, I cannot turn over a rock without meeting a Washingtonian who's benefiting from what you have called the Affordable Clean Air Act. I love that, the designation you've given the IRA. Look, it is so profound. Over Moses Lake, Washington, former rural agricultural area, we now have iron workers, sheet metal workers building 2 plants. They're going to build the most advanced battery manufacturing. It's a new kind of battery. It's a silicone anode battery. It can increase the range of your electric car by maybe 30%. This is earth-shaking because of the leadership we've had, first from President Biden and Harris, and now in Harris and Walz. It's going to continue and accelerate that type of thing. About 20 miles down the road, met a woman who's now got, she's a farm worker. She's picking apples at 3 o'clock in the morning, and now her utility bill is zero because we got solar panels on her home. There's nothing more exciting to her than have a utility bill that is zero. This is all over my state, and it's so exciting for governors now, frankly, in all 50 states that are now experiencing this tremendous burst of innovation and job creation and benefits for their living standards. So it's really exciting. That's the first thing I want to say. I want to say 2 other things if I can, Gina. Number 1, Kamala Harris really gets this. We know the profound experience and innovation that she had working with President Biden. One little story. I was at the Christmas party at the White House last Christmas, ran into her in the hall. She spent 10 million minutes regaling me about her plans and how exciting she was on climate issues. This is close to her heart. We're going to have a great leader who has a passion for this. It's not one of her talking points or a bumper sticker. This is close to her heart. And I know Tim Walz has done extraordinary things as the governor of Minnesota. So we have 2 leaders who really, really get this deeply. They're going to accelerate this revolution. The second thing I want to say is, look, here's a thought experiment. Who are the most important 600 people in the world today when it comes to the most important issue to humanity? The most important 600 people in the world today are on this phone call, because they're the people who can really get out there and hustle these votes and get climate voters to get this team elected. And I want to thank you for being on this call, and I want to ask you to do one thing for this effort. Here's the most important renewable resource, most important renewable energy. It's not solar, it's not wind, it's people power in this election. I want to ask everybody to take 10. Next week, bring 10 people to this party. Go out and find 10 people that'll send their name in as a volunteer. And if we take 10, this 600 is going to be 6,000 next week. And I hope everybody will take a chance to do that. If you do that, you won't get the Nobel Peace Prize like Al Gore got, but you're going to get a great administration to do great things. So let's go get them. Take 10. Thanks, Gina.
You're the man as always, Governor. I'll tell you, you're an inspiration. Congresswoman, let's jump to you because there seems to be a growing movement among Republicans in Congress to publicly embrace and protect the IRA. What do you see going on here? And what might it mean for our work ahead?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm so excited to be here today to join some of my heroes in the climate movement and to help propel us forward. So we not only get Kamala Harris elected as the next president of the United States, but we grow the climate movement from the grassroots up. So I'm just so excited to be here. I'm Melanie Stansbury. I am a science professional by my background. I've worked on water and climate issues for 25 years, and I have the tremendous opportunity to serve my community of New Mexico in Congress. And one of the things that I think is really important for people to understand is that the Inflation Reduction Act is not only the largest and most significant investment in climate and clean energy in the history of the United States, but in the history of any country on planet Earth. And that would not have happened without the visionary leadership of you, former administrator, and of course, Mr. Kerry and governor and others who are on this call, but particularly because of President Biden. And that is coupled with the historic investments that we're making through the bipartisan infrastructure bill, as well as the CHIPS and Science Act. And you asked the governor about how it's touching down in Washington state. Here in New Mexico, literally billions of dollars are flowing into our state. We're building the largest wind field in North America. We just opened a wind turbine factory in a rural community. We're repatriating and bringing home American manufacturing jobs in solar and chips and science, and we're building the science and technology of the future. So we are pumped, we're excited. The Inflation Reduction Act is literally creating jobs every single day in my home state. And that is why I think that the movement is growing on a bipartisan basis. Look, you can't look around you and not see the impacts of climate change. We just had a catastrophic fire in southern New Mexico. It wiped out hundreds and hundreds of homes, and they've now had 10 floods since those fires happened that are continuing to impact that community. So climate change is here, it's touching down in our communities, and people can't ignore the science anymore. And so people in leadership positions are recognizing that these investments in our infrastructure, in our economy, in our jobs are not only part of building the future for our communities, but necessary to save our communities from the impacts of climate change. And I just want to add one more thing, which is that the contrast could not be more clear right now. And this is what I see in Congress every day. I sit on the Oversight Committee. We cover a lot of government agencies. And, you know, we still have climate deniers serving in Congress. And the biggest, baddest, worst climate denier who's propagating the big lie around climate change is Donald Trump. And so if we want Donald Trump to remove us from international agreements, if we want him to open oil and gas drilling in every offshore and public land square inch that we have in this country, if we want him to kill the enormous investments that the Biden-Harris administration has made in environmental justice, he's ready to do it. And he's ready to sell his seat to do it for $2 billion to the oil and gas industry. And what we know is that Kamala Harris is a climate leader. She spent her entire career as a lawyer and a litigator and a prosecutor, fighting for environmental justice in our communities. And we know that she's going to go out there and continue the work of the Biden-Harris administration and make sure that these investments touch down in our communities. And so that's why I am fired up and ready to get her and Tim Walz elected.
Thank you so much. And I am feeling great about having a climate woman who's a scientist on the Hill. Thank you for everything you're doing. Now let me turn to Mayor Bibb. Mayor, what can you tell us about what's really happening in your great city of Cleveland? How have you spread the word to folks at the local level about the benefits of the IRA? And are people hearing about it? And are they grabbing those opportunities?
Well, first, I want to just thank you, Gina, for having us here today. And I want to thank all the important climate leaders who have been doing the hard work for a long time to meet the moment for our country to address this issue. Look, Cleveland is at the center of this fight, and we have a long, long history in terms of addressing climate change and advancing the climate justice. For folks that don't know, in 1969, our river caught on fire, but the first Black mayor elected of a major city, Carl B. Stokes, went on a nationwide pollution tour to say that having clean rivers and waterways in cities like Cleveland is a moral obligation for this country. And so I'm proud to be a climate mayor doing that hard work every single day. We're knocking on doors, talking to voters about the importance of accessing the amazing tax credits from the Inflation Reduction Act. We just cut our brand new free 24/7 EV charging station, not in a wealthy white neighborhood, but in a poor Black neighborhood in my city, to show that part of the city that they matter too. And America's mayors are going to be ready to stand with the next president, President Harris, to continue this agenda. So I'm fired up. I'm ready to go. And I'm excited to spread the good news about what this administration is going to do come next year. And as my grandma once told me, well done is better than well said. And Vice President Harris has that track record. We got to show up for her this upcoming November.
Mayor Bibb, you give me hope, man, because it's young people like you that are going to take over for old dudes like me. But having said that, I want to introduce someone who probably needs no introduction, and that's Jane Fonda. I'm going to talk to her and make sure that Jane is seen not just as a star on and off the screen, but as the truly living legend in the climate space. Jane's an impassioned advocate. She led the Fire Drill Fridays, demanding political action be taken to address the climate emergency. She's been arrested more times than, I don't know, a lot of times, and convinced her co-stars to join her. I always thought I was the most badass grandma around, but man, she totally has me beat. So please welcome my friend and colleague, Jane, you're on.
Oh, thanks, Gina. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be with all of you on this call. Hey, I'm happy that Harris and Wells campaign is having a climate call, right? What a change. So we're here to celebrate the Inflation Reduction Act, which for sure has brought historic levels of funding to the green energy future. As someone already said, it's been a real game changer because of the IRA, solar and wind are becoming so inexpensive, they'll be irresistible to the marketplace in this country. And we need to celebrate the victory. Yay! But let's in the future consider what legislation does to communities of color and the indigenous, the poor. It's called environmental justice. You know, if we don't transition off fossil fuels quickly, the climate crisis is going to cost our economy $38 trillion by mid-century. That's the damages that the climate crisis is going to cause us. It's going to destroy the biodiversity that we and our ecosystems depend on, and it's going to trigger global conflict around food and water. Time is against us, right? We don't have 4 years to lose, okay? November, unlike any previous election in our lifetime anyway, is going to determine whether we even stand a chance. Now, you know, we've all heard Donald Trump say, drill, baby, drill. We've heard it enough to know where he wants to take us, right? And I don't know if you all heard this, but he invited all the big CEOs of the oil companies down to Mar-a-Lago, and he said that he would reverse all of the Biden administration's environmental policies if they gave him $1 billion. I mean, I'm not joking. He really said that. And you should read Project 25, or at least, I don't know, peruse the part about energy. This is a 900-page, aggressive and incredibly detailed blueprint for attacking the most vulnerable among us and literally dismantling the fabric of our democracy. It's written by some of Trump's closest allies. You know, it's calling for the elimination of the Department of Energy, of Education. Can you imagine doing away with the Department of Education? In the document, In the document, it says there can be no mention of climate when we're making decisions about where our energy has to come from. In fact, climate is referred to as a special interest. You got to read it and then talk about it, tell people about it, get the word out. This is what we're going to get with the Orange Man. We can't let it happen. Now, when I speak to potential voters, as I've been doing for the last year, I explain the urgency of the climate crisis. And I ask them to vote with climate in their hearts. You know, we have to electrolyze people's climate angst. So many feel that the problem is so big that they can't make a difference, but they can. We have to let them know. This year, by voting, and if they're able, helping, you know, to make sure that everybody is registered and has a plan for voting. And we got to let people know, we got to let our children and grandchildren know that sitting it out, voting for a third-party candidate, this is voting for the Orange Man. So we have to really work on helping young people understand this. Scientists are desperately warning us that we must cut carbon emissions in half by 2030. That's only 5.5 years from now, right? We don't have time to lose. I know that a lot of people that you and I are going to speak to and have spoken to are concerned about human rights, inflation, healthcare, and these are all really, really important. So explain to them that the climate crisis makes all of that worse. It's the great disruptor. Food prices go up as more and more arable land becomes unusable and turns to desert. The economy becomes unworkable. New pandemics will threaten our healthcare systems, which are so not prepared. And democracy itself will become almost impossible. Now, I could keep going, but this is serious. However, with Kamala and Tim in the White House, we're going to have a fighting chance. We're going to have leaders committed to reducing harmful greenhouse gases and lead us to a fossil fuel-free future. Blah, blah, blah. So a mouthful, fossil fuel-free future. You know, don't we want people who are alive by mid-century 2050, don't we want them to know that when their future was at stake, we weren't sitting around having manicures and rearranging the china. We want them to know that we did everything that we could to end this culture of extraction. So make sure that you and everybody you talk to is registered to vote, know where they can go to vote, and has researched candidates to determine their position on policy and on climate. Okay? Let's do everything we can to elect Harris and Wells. They are our hope now. See, they give us a context on which we can fight. They give us a voice. With the Orange Man, we have no voice. Together with our families and friends and neighbors and colleagues and all the people that we're going to mobilize, we can win in November. We just have to get out the vote. So let's do it. Let's be brave and let's be in a hurry.
Jane, thank you so much. Fabulous as always. So good to see you, my friend. And for those of you who'd like to see some more Jane Fonda, and who doesn't, we had an incredible featured session on climate at South by Southwest just earlier this year. So please check that out and you can get a lot more beautiful headlines and clips from Jane Fonda. Thank you so much. Let's move on to Monica Medina. She is the former Assistant Secretary of State for Oceans, Environment, and Science. She will be moderating a panel of fabulous speakers. Over to you, Monica.
Thanks so much, Sweta. It's great to be here today. Boy, is it hard to follow that wonderful leader and inspiring hero of so many of us, Jane Fonda. Thank you so much for all you said and all you do. And Gina McCarthy, I'm looking forward to being one of those badass grandmas myself very soon. And so, yes, we are here to talk about what an exciting movement this is and how much enthusiasm is growing out there in the country. We've seen historic joy and enthusiasm as the Vice President and Governor Walz have hit the campaign trail. As Jake said earlier, thousands of people in key battleground states showing up to show their support. And today we're going to talk to some of the leaders of the environmental movement who are seeing that also out there on the campaign trail as they work to try and bring more environmental voters to the polls in November. So we're lucky to have with us today the president of EDF Action, David Kiva, the executive director of NRDC's Action Fund, Kevin Curtis, the executive director of the Sierra Club, Ben Jealous, and the former executive director of Greenpeace USA, Ebony Twilley-Martin. So welcome to all of them. It's an honor to be here with you and to celebrate the work that you're doing and to thank you for that. So let me just kick this off quickly by asking Kevin and Ben, who are out there in the field a lot now, how have you seen the Harris-Walz ticket energize your membership? And what's going on out there in the field? I know people on TV like to talk about the vibe. What's the vibe like out there?
All right, well, I'll start with my story. I'm Kevin with the Action Fund. I was actually in a field, a horse field, on Sunday afternoon when the news came down. Within 24 hours, we had convened the Action Fund's Political Action Funds Board. They unanimously voted to endorse Kamala Harris. And by that evening, we joined LCV and Sierra Club and got our endorsement out to the world. So people just sprinted to embrace the ticket. That was kind of at the leadership level. At the membership level, we had a previously scheduled super volunteers call later that week. The numbers spiked. All of a sudden, people went from, yeah, I'll be there, to I want to be there. I want to be there. And kind of the most important, just to kind of call it out, is my colleagues at work and our donors and members, they don't run from me. They come find me now. I used to have to go hunt them down and say, you know, it's the right thing to get out there and vote for Biden. You know, you got to get the energy up. Now they're telling me, Kevin, what can I do? What do you want me to do? We want to do more. So that's the sea change, and it's just awesome. So that's our little story, and it's part of a much, much larger movement that we're seeing. So thank you, Monica.
Ben, tell us what you're seeing out there.
Yeah, Monica, I would echo everything that Kevin said. I think the bottom line is we've gone from feeling like we're fighting with the wind in our face to fighting with the wind at our backs. And you see that with young people in particular. I mean, I see it in my own house. My daughter just registered to vote in Pennsylvania, where she starts college. She's very excited to be in a swing state for college. When you listen to her friends, but you hear that echoed, the enthusiasm I hear in my own house amongst my daughter and her friends with our millions of activists in the Sierra Club. It's the young ones really coming in full of steam, but it's also the older ones feeling like they can fight with hope. And that combination makes me very excited.
Yeah, it's really great to feel all this love and joy out there in the world, in the country, for what we see happening right before our very eyes, in an instant, it seems. So let me now turn to David and Ebony and talk about the thing that we talked about at the top of this broadcast about the Inflation Reduction Act. And President Biden famously called another piece of legislation a BFD, a big deal. And I would argue that this law, the Inflation Reduction Act, is a big deal for the country. But how is it helping you all out there energize the base? So David and Ebony, to you.
Sure, I'll start, and then Ebony, you can clean up anything that I mess up here. I'm just back in Washington, D.C. I was on the ground in Lansing, Michigan yesterday, where I did a press event touting some of the benefits of the Inflation Reduction Act. And I was out there talking about the benefits to consumers of buying an electric car, truck, or SUV, and the benefits to workers. But I'm an environmental advocate. People expect to hear me talking about environmental progress if it's environmentally friendly. The really important thing was that we were joined by two really respected business leaders, the president and CEO of the Lansing Economic Area Partnership and the president and CEO of the Lansing Chamber of Commerce. We're both there talking about the jobs that are coming to their communities. All of us who are in the climate movement are old enough to remember the time when we were poisoned by a false choice between you can either do the right thing for the economy or you can do the right thing for the environment. Today, doing the right thing for our environment, doing the right thing for our climate is the thing that is doing the right thing for our economy. We're creating millions and millions of good paying jobs in clean energy, and we can never, ever go back, and we can never forget that Kamala Harris cast the tie-breaking vote for the most important, as Congresswoman Stansbury said, the most important law on climate that the world has ever seen.
Truly the most important. And I can tell you from having been around the world, countries around the world appreciate that we are doing our part finally. So Ebony, how about you? What are you seeing out there?
Yeah, as Kevin said, we can talk about for hours the tangible game-changing effects of the IRA on the environment and our communities. And it really showed that the government can still do big things when there is a will and a desire to work collaboratively with allies, stakeholders, and work across the aisle, as President Biden and Vice President Harris will continue to do. You know, I live in Ward 7 in DC, and that's 1 block away from the Anacostia watershed. And that is an area that's been heavily polluted for a number of years. And we just put in a beautiful rain garden that has brought in a lot of vegetation and wildlife. And we saw some construction happen a couple months ago. And so we went over and asked, you know, what's going on? And actually, they're doing a node project for sediment control, and it was directly from the IRA. And we know that sediment control helps to protect our waterways, helps to protect our water quality, and bring other environmental benefits in, and also providing jobs to the community. So when communities are positively impacted and see these tangible results from the IRA, it of course gives a boost of morale and brings hope, because it takes the climate fight, which kind of seems a bit abstract, but it brings it into your real lives and into your community, and you can actually see the positive impact. So that's why we need these solutions, and that's why we definitely have to get Vice President Harris and Governor Walz into these roles so that we can continue the momentum that we already have in place.
That's exactly right. Clean air, clean water, nature for people to enjoy, cooling for cities. There's so much. And what's really amazing is how it's everywhere. It's not just for some places. It's for all kinds of places that have been overlooked, for communities that didn't get their fair share. And it's so exciting when in the administration, you can know that you're delivering not just for some, but for all. It's really inspiring. And I hope that people are feeling it out there as well. So let me just ask a quick question of every one of you, because I think, you know, what we want to inspire people to do is take action. We know that, you know, we're all trying to do our own thing, but it's great to know we're part of something bigger. And that's, I think, the most important thing we can do is keep growing this movement and get more people to volunteer. Because if we do, I know there is nothing that can stop us in November. So to each of you, what gives you hope, and what do we have to do in order to not only beat the climate crisis, but to win in November?
We got to win in November, and we have to focus on winning on November, and we can't ever take our eye off that ball. And it's about to, I think, I forget which of the previous, it was Governor Inslee. Let's make sure that the next call has twice as many, and the next call an exponential number. And we just keep spreading the word, because it's all about winning the election. And there's the positive, amazing energy from Harris Walz. And then there's the orange man, as Jane Fonda said, and we know what he brings. So it's a choice is clear. The emotion's with us. We have 80 some days to make sure we get across the goal line. Thanks.
Sure. Ben, next to you.
Absolutely. You know, I would say 3 things. I mean, look, it's exciting to see the battleground states polls shifting. It's exciting to see small dollar contributions way up. But the thing that excites me most as an organizer is to see the ranks of volunteers swelling for the campaign, for us at Sierra Club working on these issues. There's just a real sense of excitement. And the reality is that it always comes down to a battle, you know, versus sort of organized people, if you will, versus organized money. And Donald Trump has organized a lot of money, and some of that even seems endless, but this is still a democracy. And in a democracy, at the end of the day, the victory goes to who can organize the most people. And it does seem like the wind is at our back. So let's go out there, as Jay Inslee said, come back with 10 people. But most importantly, organize all the way through Election Day. We got this.
80 days to go. David, over to you.
Sure. What gives me hope? There's so much. First of all, it's such an honor to be a part of this program alongside so many people who I so deeply respect, including all of my co-panelists as part of this session. We were hanging out in the backstage Zoom, and we could all see each other. And when people would get called into the program, I was like, no, don't go. I want to be in the room with Governor Inslee and Secretary Kerry and Gina McCarthy for a little bit longer. But it's so fitting that we've got 1,600 activists on this call. Let's all do our part to send Kamala Harris to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. And as others have said, let's go out and bring more people back to join this. What gives me hope? I believe in America. I don't believe we need to make America great again. I believe America is already the greatest country on earth. I think we've shown more leadership than anyone else anywhere in the world in passing this landmark climate legislation. And I believe that when we've been faced with big challenges before, we've met them faster than anyone expected us to. The two biggest climate laws in the history of our nation. We've talked a lot about the Inflation Reduction Act, and happy second birthday to it. The second biggest was the bipartisan infrastructure law. Before that, you had to go back to 2009, the Recovery Act that Barack Obama signed into law. Those investments were puny compared to what we've done under the past 4 years of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's leadership. But they still were able to get us to a place where clean energy came down from about 4 times the cost of fossil fuel energy to more or less parity. Imagine what we can do if we keep going forward, keep our foot on the accelerator of our electric cars and trucks, and get to a clean energy future that works better for the American people, costs everyone less money, and gives us cleaner air, cleaner water, and a safer, healthier community. So I'm super, super optimistic, but I'm not gonna do anything to stop working over these next 85 days, and hope everyone else joins us in doing exactly that.
Ebony, last word.
And what gives me hope, of course, these awesome candidates that we have, they have proven track records. They have the receipts. They've done the work. So what better is there to put hope in that people that have already done the work? And we also know that hope and unity work together. And we have to get out there. We have to organize. We have to engage. We have to educate. We have to mobilize folks. And there's nothing we can't do when we aren't all unified. And we've seen a wonderful wave of unity over our party, over the movement. Just walking down the street, it just feels lighter. So we are hopeful, we're optimistic, and we know that we have to do the work, and we're going to continue to keep our, like we said, our foot on the gas this next 80 days.
80 days. All right. I know what gives me hope is young people who are joining this fight in big, big numbers. So I'm going to toss it back to you, Sweta, to introduce some young voices into this conversation. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Monica. Thank you to your fabulous panelists. And yes, from one powerful woman to another in the next generation. But before I introduce Green Girl Leah, environmental activist Leah Thomas, I would like to just encourage all of you that are tuning in to please sign up at kamalaharris.com/climate-voters or text climate to C30330. So all of you can join into this incredible energy that we are kicking off from today, few days before the DNC, countdown to the elections, all hands on deck, everybody get involved. And nobody has been doing that more actively in her short life compared to others on this call. Jealous of you, Leah, you have so much more to do. Handing it over to you, all yours.
Awesome. Hi, everybody. I'm just so excited to be here, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the importance of social media and the climate movement. In 2020, I left my job at Patagonia. I love Patagonia so much, but I saw an urgent need to talk a little bit more about environmental justice and the intersections of social justice and environmentalism within the broader environmental movement. And I didn't really know exactly what I was doing, but I mobilized a group of over 20 climate activists, mostly Gen Zers, and we came together to start Intersectional Environmentalists, which not only changed my life, but I saw just how important social media was for mobilizing Gen Zers for climate action. So after I began Intersectional Environmentalists, we began reaching millions of young people every month, students across the country that weren't learning about environmental justice in their classrooms, but desperately wanted free resources. So we mobilized a bunch of students, started making resources about environmental justice, and then from social media that started translating into the classrooms with students asking their teachers to play reels and TikToks in the classroom about everything from food justice to learning a little bit more about other environmental justices. And then I saw just how powerful social media was. And then from social media to the classroom and all the way to the White House, because Kamala invited me and a bunch of other social media advocates to come to the White House to learn about how we can raise awareness with our peers about taking climate action. So for anyone who's wondering, okay, is social media the real deal? How can this be used in the climate movement? It absolutely is, and it's becoming a way to mobilize young people to get out there. And I want to continue to use it and continue mobilizing other content creators and activists across social media to reach their audiences. And I think something that's really important to know about content creators, or if you want to be a content creator and make content, is that we have hyper niche audiences. So me in particular, as a Black woman from the Midwest, a lot of my content is about what's going on in places like the Midwest that really, really matter, but are often left out of the climate conversation, and raising awareness about environmental injustices and the incredible grassroots organizations that are doing everything in their power and just need resources and amplification and support. And through social media, we've been able to motivate young people to get connected to those grassroots organizations to create change. So I just wanted to hop on here to remind you all the importance of social media, and that a lot of Gen Zers are doing everything in their power to raise awareness with their peers about the climate crisis. Whether they're doing cute little TikTok dances with serious content talking about what's going on, it's been really fascinating to see the way the climate movement has really meshed with social media advocacy. So I'm really excited to be here, and I just wanted to get on and show my full support and continue to mobilize other content creators and Gen Zers to find their voice through social media. For me, as a somewhat shy person, I never thought I would be a public speaker, but the internet and being behind a screen has provided ways for me and other anxious Gen Zers to share our feelings about climate anxiety and also voice our opinions, etc. So like I said, social media can go from social media to the classroom and then reach to the federal level. And I'm so excited with the role social media played in raising awareness about environmental justice in particular, and the passage of the IRA, which I'm still so excited about. So I know another very special guest is coming up, which I also had the privilege to interview for social media not too long ago. So I'll kick it back over to you all, and thank you again so much for having me.
Thank you, Leah. And social media is not just for the next generation. We use it every day to amplify climate solutions that are accelerating our transition to clean energy. And nobody has explained energy, atoms, all things science better than America's scientist, who needs no introduction other than the science guy. I will leave the next 10 minutes in the good hands of Bill Nye. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much indeed. It's so good to see everyone, or be seen by everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are just trying to, dare I say it, change the world. So I just want to provide everybody with some things to think about when we are working to get people who are on the fence about which side to vote for or whether to vote at all, to get those people off the fence. Let me say, the situation is very serious. This is the real deal that people have talked about, great concern, and you will often hear the expression tipping point. Well, the latest research led by people like Michael Mann. Michael Mann is the guy who did the original hockey stick graph. He was one of the recipients, or was named in the Nobel Prize with Al Gore several years ago. He has pointed out in his latest work that there's not going to be a tipping point. Things are just going to get worse and worse, hotter and hotter, more fires, more floods, more melting of glaciers, rising sea levels, and so on. So people on the other side will say that somebody like me, maybe somebody like many of us on this call, are alarmists. Well, being an alarmist isn't necessarily bad. Paul Revere, the British, that was good. That was good that he raised the alarm. It changed the course of human history. And so speaking of the Nobel Prize and Al Gore, I used to say to people, Al Gore is considered an alarmist. I used to say to people, the 2000 election was the most significant election in my life. This is when Al Gore got the most votes, but did not become
president. If he had become president, we would have done something about climate change. But what happened is we lost a couple decades. So you could get very concerned. You could, as I like to say, run in circles screaming. But let's not do that. Let's get to work. I remind everybody that speaking of Paul Revere, speaking of the people who founded this country, about whom you may have mixed feelings, those guys had some pretty cool ideas. One of them was the US Constitution, which I like to remind everybody is available in paperback. And I have been to many congressional offices where I met the members of Congress, members of the Senate, and their staffers who were unfamiliar with Article 1, Section 8, Clause 8. Article 1 is the role of Congress. That's what the legislative branch is what they're supposed to do. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 8 refers to the progress of science and useful arts. That's what the Congress is supposed to do, is promote the progress of science, not say science isn't real, not say let's close the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration and just get our weather information from the Weather. Wait, the Weather Channel gets its information from NOAA. Wait, that's not going to, and so on. So you guys, we want to embrace science, embrace the science of climate change, and get to work. As I like to say, in the Constitution, progress of science and useful arts, and to me, useful arts was 18th century description of engineering, using science to make things and solve problems like climate change. So although it's very serious, and although in many ways people on our side of this sound like alarmists, we are optimists. We have passed the Inflation Reduction Act, which is also the Affordable Clean Energy Plan. We've done that. We can do this. Everybody who competed in the recent Olympics thought he or she was going to win. That's why they went in. You don't go into the game thinking you're not going to be able to win. We can do this, everybody. And as the president likes to say, this is the United States. This is the real deal. Since the beginning of this country, over 200 years ago, we have solved problem after problem. So when you meet somebody at the holidays or what have you, Halloween's coming up, Labor Day is coming up, people who are on the other side of the fence, remind them that progress of science and useful arts is in the Constitution. We've solved a bunch of other problems. And now we are making electricity more cheaply than we used to, using fossil fuels. And right now, it is very fashionable on the other side to use the word energy interchangeably with fossil energy, energy made from ancient swamps that got buried, apparently due to the action of living things here on this planet with tectonic plates. It's really remarkable. And so that coal and oil, natural gas has been buried for millennia. And now it is the time to stop burning. So we have come to understand this, and we've come to understand our place on Earth and in the cosmos, and we can make these big changes. We did not ask for this gig, everybody. We did not ask to have to change the world on account of humankind changing the climate. But here we are. We are the second species after blue-green algae that is able to change the climate of an entire planet. We are in charge of this place. If you've ever owned a house, you're in charge of it. You have to make changes. You have to control it. And we can do that. And as I say, now look, I'm not objective. How can I be? I'm a science educator, science enthusiast, mechanical engineer, loves physics. But objectively, we are now in charge of the planet and we can make changes. And when I say we, I'm talking about the United States. Now, I was born here, and look at my ancestry. I mean, I've gotten every opportunity possible. But the United States, for better or for worse, is the world leader. People all over the world speak American English. People all over the world embrace US culture. When it came time to wrap the Olympics and say we're going to be in Los Angeles next time, we had this US movie star leading the fight. We can do this, you guys. So everybody, let's bring, what did Jay Inslee say? Bring 10 people. Let's bring a few people next time and we'll build this movement. And if you want to do something about climate change, I always say there are two things. The first thing is what we're doing right now. We're talking about it. If we were talking about climate change, we were talking about these other important issues, price of eggs, price of gasoline, which is important. We would be doing something about it. And the second thing is vote. Everybody vote. We can do this, everyone. Let's go. Let us, dare I say it, change the world. Back to you.
Nice one. Thank you. That was the opposite order of what I had said. Vote, then communicate. But either or, everyone, please join in. Join forces. Let's
communicate first and vote on November 5th. We'll get November 5th done, then we'll take a meeting about more communication. Let's go, you guys. We can do this.
We can do this. Everyone, please, right now, go to kamalaharris.com/climate voters and text climate 30330. Join in. We need your efforts. This is all hands on deck. We're just a few days away from the Democratic National Convention. We are 80 days out from the elections. This is the time to mobilize. And I'm thrilled now to bring, and thank you again, Bill, appreciate you contributing all of your knowledge and expertise to this endeavor. And now we have Shelby Friedman, who is joining us from the Harris Victory Fund and the Democratic National Committee. Over to you, Shelby. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you so much. Thanks to everyone for being on. Wow, what an incredible honor to be with you all, to be following Bill Nye. Never expected that when I signed up for this job. So just really grateful to be with everyone this afternoon. So I am joining you all from the Harris Victory Fund, which is sort of our main fundraising vehicle for the campaign. I am our coalition's deputy finance director, where I get to work with a lot of our climate-focused donors. And so we've heard today a lot about just how high the stakes are for the future of our planet. I know we've heard a lot about what we can all do to make a difference in this election. And I'm here to talk a little bit about how important it is to donate your funds as well. In addition to your time, your network, we also need your financial support. I think, folks on this call probably know, or maybe you don't, that to run a presidential campaign is a 50-state operation. It's like running 50 statewide campaigns all at once, and it's super expensive. So we are, working with donors of all different sizes. If you can give a little bit, that's great. Give a little. If you can give a lot, that's great. Give a lot. It all makes a difference, and it all adds up. I see that our colleagues at the League of Conservation Voters have dropped our Give Green link in the chat, which is a great way to give and show the campaign that you are a climate donor, and let us know that you're contributing because you care about the climate. When you give to the campaign, you are powering our operation through ads on television, digital ads, field offices to get folks out door knocking. All of that costs money. And so, anything you can give, anything that your friends and your family, your colleagues can give, it all makes a big difference. We, in addition to, just sort of giving through a link, we also have a lot of opportunities to engage your networks in a little bit more of a personal way around fundraising and organizing a fundraiser. So that is also an option. And I am sure the team will provide information about how to get in touch if you would like to organize a fundraiser. We would love to work with you on that, whether it's large or small. So just thank you all for everything that you're doing, everything that you will do. And we're excited to fuel this machine all the way through to a victory in November. So thanks again, and I will turn it back to the team.
Awesome, Shelby. Thank you so much for that. Okay, moving swiftly along. We're making good time. As a moderator, that's always really precious. Time is precious for everyone, but especially when it's a Friday afternoon, and I know there's happy hours for some of you calling. We are going to Jamie Lopez, the Digital Coalitions Director for Harris for President. Jamie, over to you.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm very excited to be here. My name is Jaime Lopez. I'm the Digital Coalitions Director here at Harris for President, and I'm here to share some ways that you can take action. I believe, will I be showing slides? Those? No? Got it? I thought there were going to be some. There we go. Thank you. Great, let's go on to the next slide. So we're just going to talk about some ways you can get involved with our team so that you can knock on doors, you can phone bank, host an event, or share our messaging. Next slide, please. But to get started, I'll talk about just 3 simple actions you can take today using your phone. And then that way you can get signed up. Next slide. First way has already been shared on this call, but it's super important, so I'll be here to repeat it. You can join us by signing up at kamalaharris.com/climate voters, or you can simply scan this code that you see here on the screen, or you can even just text climate to 30330, and that'll get you signed up for our Climate Voters Initiative, and you'll hear more events, and you'll be, on our list. Next slide, please. Another way to get involved is to join our Reach community. This is a platform that we use to share content with family and friends, with our neighbors. It's also a good way to get messaging from us. You'll get some actions from the campaign, and then you could also use this to record the conversations you have with your network so that we're able to reach even more folks. And the last slide, please. And the last way you can get involved today is to scan the QR code here to join Discord. This is where all of our volunteers are sort of like live, and they communicate with us, and we pass along content, any sort of like updates. And then if you are like a content creator, this is a place for you to go. Thank you so much. Back to you.
Thank you, Jaime. And I'm going to make sure I say that right a second time. Jaime, thank you for that. So we are now moving on to Ade Sawyer of Climate Power, and I'm a proud advisory board member to Climate Power. And what I love most about Climate Power is it's all about evidence-based messaging. Are we using the right words and constructing messaging in a way that really resonates with the audiences that we're trying to reach? It's all about the science of communicating science. So I'm thrilled to hand it off to my friend and colleague, Ade. Please, over to you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Sweta. As you mentioned, at Climate Power, we're very, very focused on building the political will and the public will for climate action. And a lot of that work involves bringing people into the circle who don't yet know that climate is their issue. I'm really grateful for this group of people on this call because you're all in the circle. You all know that this is something that matters and ought to matter, and that it's the existential issue that John Kerry mentioned earlier. But there are a whole lot of other people out there who don't yet know that this is for them. And we do a lot of thinking about how to bring those people in. In these next 80 or so days, it's going to be really important for us to have your help with spreading these messages. So I want to share a little bit of what we have learned about what really resonates and matters to people. Number one, we really want people to walk away understanding that the Harris-Walz ticket is the clear choice for taking this country forward on climate and clean energy progress, and contrasting that with Donald Trump and JD Vance and their dangerous Project 2025 agenda that's going to take us backward, stop our clean energy boom, and we refuse to go back. A lot of what we want to be doing is sharing that contrast and finding different ways to do that. So I'll talk a little bit about what we need to do for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, and a little bit of what we need to do for Donald Trump and JD Vance. When it comes to Harris and Walz, a lot of what we're doing is education. We're telling people about their record because many people don't yet know, and they're depending on people like us to share that with them. We know that Kamala Harris has spent her career fighting for clean air and water, not just in the White House, but before as well. As California's Attorney General, she won over $50 million in settlements from big oil companies, prosecuting or taking action against them for environmental crimes. And so when she talks about herself being the top prosecutor, environmental crime is a big part of that story. We know that she was the tie-breaking vote on the Clean Energy Plan, which passed 2 years ago today as a part of the IRA. We also know that for a lot of voters, the IRA, they don't know what the IRA is, and it takes some explaining for them to know what that is. But a clean energy plan is very clear. If I tell you I got a clean energy plan, you don't have a whole lot of questions about what's in that plan. It's about clean energy. And so we really try to emphasize that for people. And it's a plan that connects to everyone's biggest concern, which is the economy. It's a plan that's going to that is already tripling clean energy production and helping Americans save $38 billion on their electric bills. And at the same time, it's creating over 330,000 clean energy jobs and counting. In less than 2 years, 330,000 clean energy jobs all across the country. And she's someone who, Kamala Harris is someone who understands that climate change is real and that it's costly. She understands that we're feeling and paying for the impacts of extreme weather, whether that's floods in people's homes, extreme heat, droughts that are causing massive wildfires. These aren't just esoteric issues. These are issues that can affect literally anyone in this country, both our homes, our families, our physical safety, and also our wallets. And so something that we really want to push and educate people about all over the country. On the other hand, you have Donald Trump and JD Vance, who have a dangerous Project 2025 agenda, a dangerous Project 2025 agenda. The Project 2025 agenda, it's dangerous. And we say that, we use that word for a reason, because people understand that Donald Trump is a danger in a lot of different ways to this country. We hear all the time the danger to democracy. We hear all the time the danger to women's reproductive freedom and the freedom to have abortions. But not as many people understand the danger that's out there on climate from Trump's agenda. And we have an opportunity to really share that with people and understand that danger, again, is to our wallets, it's to our families, it's to our communities, and that's very, very real. He would end all of our investments in clean energy, put all of those 330,000 jobs at risk. He's already making deals with big oil. The big oil executives, they were the lobbyists, the ones who wrote that Project 2025 agenda, and people need to know that. He's told them that if they put $1 billion into his campaign, he'll return $110 billion to them in the form of tax breaks and free reign to pollute at will. And that's not an esoteric problem. That's pollution that will affect our families. That's market manipulation, price gouging that will affect our pocketbooks. We learned actually on Wednesday in a report from a nonpartisan group that the Project 2025 agenda would cost American households $32 billion in total household energy costs, kill 1.7 million jobs. In addition to more premature deaths from pollution, and of course, massively expand the rate of climate pollution across the country. A dangerous agenda. And so because of that, we really need to capture this moment, need to capture this 80 days and treat it as a fight, because it is one. Young people, women, communities of color, folks all across this country are energized to vote in this election. And what we need to do is get to them and give them the reason to do it. The last thing I'll say is coming back to the first point, which is about, again, contrast. I know that for some of us, it's easy to look at the political landscape and feel like there's just too much negativity, right? We hear that all the time. And I can't argue that. What I can say, though, is that a contrast really matters. Comparing the good thing we want to the dangerous thing that we want to avoid, having those both at the same time make a really big difference to people when they're seeing it firsthand laid out in front of them. So we have a choice between the Harris and Walz campaign versus the Trump and Vance campaign. One of them is talking about cost savings for the middle class. The other is talking about tax breaks for billionaires. One is talking about holding oil and gas accountable. The other is talking about giving free rein to corporate polluters and, in fact, being a dictator on day one to prop up the big oil industry. We have one that's talking about investing in a clean energy economy versus another that's talking about laying off clean energy, hundreds of thousands of clean energy workers, and stifling an industry that should be growing. And lastly, we have a ticket that's committed to cleaner air and water versus one that has already made the pledge to increase toxic pollution, all to put more money in the pocket of big oil. These are all things that are really important to me personally. That's why I'm here, but also important to, I think, all of us on this call and to the country and the world. And so really appreciate having the time to talk through a little bit of that, and happy to pass the mic back to Sweta.
Thank you, Ade, and we appreciate you. Thank you for those very clear key messages that all of you tuning in. Remember, you're communicators and voters, of course, not arguing with Bill Nye on that one, but we're communicators and voters. So take those key messages and spread them far and wide. So from one friend and colleague to another, I'm so thrilled to introduce Adam Met. He is the Executive Director of Planet Reimagined. He's also the A in AJR, the hit indie band who is selling out stadiums on tour all around the United States. I was very lucky to have attended one, and it was epic. So Adam, you're a rock star, you're a PhD, you are a climate advocate. How do you have time for it all? Please share with our audience a little bit about what we need to be thinking about in this key time. Over to you.
Sweta, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to talk to you all. And I hope that some of the things I'm going to say are going to surprise you in a positive way. So there are over 1,000 people on this call right now listening to these really important key messages about climate. And we've heard over and over again that the Harris-Walz ticket, they are going to be a climate administration. And we all agree with that. Everybody on this call agrees with that. As Sweta said, I'm a musician. I just got off tour. We hit 50 cities over the last handful of months. And in every single one of those cities, I put my academic brain to work and did a lot of research to figure out in red states and blue states where people are on climate. So one of the things I want to tell you about is what really the climate movement looks like across the United States, because that's going to give us a lot of insight of how to get people to be climate voters and vote for this ticket. So here's what we found. We did a massive poll. It went out to about 350,000 people to understand where they are on climate, the kinds of actions they want to take, how they want to participate. And one of the most surprising things for me was that Democrats, Republicans, independents all care about climate as a vital issue for them. 76% of the United States cares about climate and believes that the government should be doing more. I'm going to repeat that one more time. Republicans, Democrats, and independents can all be climate voters. Now, for the people who are on the call right now, we are not just talking to you. We're talking to your communities, your friends, your family. At every single stop on our tour, we had ways for people to engage. And that meant literally picking up the phone and people calling their members of Congress, their senators, writing letters to them, signing petitions, engaging really deeply. And we had over 35,000 unique people take these kinds of climate actions. And for me, one of the key points is that we are not just talking to people who we think are climate voters, because a lot of the people are not literally out of the closet in terms of being climate voters. The Inflation Reduction Act, we all know, is the largest and most consequential investment in climate in the US history and the world history. And we've seen Kamala Harris and Tim Walz and their records on climate. But at the same time, so much of the money and so much of the investment from the Inflation Reduction Act is going to red states. We see boosting economies at the local level. We see new investments in red states and blue states across the United States. So we see individuals benefiting from these kinds of climate investments. So my call to action for you all is not to think that Democrats are alone in this fight for climate, When we're talking about getting people out to the polls, and when we're talking about the presidential level, we're talking about voting for senators, for members of the House, all the way down to the local level. Climate is an issue for everybody. We're talking jobs, we're talking infrastructure, we're talking agriculture, we're talking how we produce things, how we build things, we're talking how our waste is processed. We're talking about things across the political spectrum. So as you're going out there and participating in this kind of advocacy that you're doing even just by being on this call, I want you to think about the people in your community that you wouldn't necessarily think are on this side of the political spectrum. I want you to think across the political spectrum because they care so deeply about this issue, and they know that this is the most important climate election of their lifetime. We need them out to the polls voting for the climate. Sweta, thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. We don't need to be in our echo chambers. We need to talk across the aisle, regardless of which side you're on, to everybody, because a climate issue is everybody's issue. So with that, let's move to our final speaker for the afternoon. I'm thrilled to welcome Senator Markey of Massachusetts, who has served as the chair of the House Select Committee on Energy Independence and Global Warming, and he currently serves as the chair of the Subcommittee on Clean Air and Nuclear Safety. And he's been dealing with some of these issues in a bipartisan manner for quite some time now. So Senator, it's a pleasure to have you. Over to you.
No, great. Thank you. And thanks for doing this. Thank you, Jake. Thank you, Monica. Thank you for everyone who has organized this today. We can't agonize. We got to organize. So number one, you need to volunteer. You need to do something. So to sign up to volunteer, you can text the word climate to 30330, and you will get a link to sign up as a volunteer. Again, just text climate to 30330, and you'll get the information on how to volunteer to fight big oil, big gas, big coal over these final 80 days. And so it's just a great honor to be on here with kind of a Mount Rushmore of climate champions who have gathered here today. We're in the final stretches of an election, which is the most important in history. Who just said that? Harold Hamm, with $18 billion, who is individually maybe the wealthiest oil and gas guy in our whole country. He believes it's the most important election ever for the oil and gas industry, because if Kamala Harris wins, then we're going to be looking at their industries in a rear view mirror of history. And what has he promised in talking to Donald Trump? $1 billion that they will fork over in this campaign in order to take the IRA off the books, in order to take all of the environmental regulations off the books, take my climate bank, which I created with Chris Van Hollen, that, by the way, Kamala Harris was the principal champion inside the administration. That's $20 billion plus another $7 billion for solar for all. That's going to unleash $120 billion worth of private sector investment. Gone, just wiped off the books if Harold Hamm and his other oil, gas cronies get what they want. So it's pay to play. That's how they're putting it on the books. And so we do agree with Harold Hamm. This is the most important election of all time for the climate, for the protection of the planet. Donald Trump cannot win. The denier in chief cannot be in the Oval Office. So we've got an incredible moment that is before us. We can make all of the difference in the world and for the world. By the way, 2 years ago today, we passed the Inflation Reduction Act. Now, first of all, why is it called the Inflation Reduction Act? Because Joe Manchin, to get his support, didn't want to have it be called the biggest climate bill in the history of the world. And at the time, the Congressional Budget Office thought that it was $369 billion of federal money that would be spent. You know what it turns out to be? $1 trillion. That's how big the appetite is for wind, for solar, for all electric vehicles, for all of the benefits from a clean energy perspective that were in that bill. $1 trillion. That's why Harold Hand, that's why all of his oil and gas cronies are so worried. They know that this is an existential threat to their business model. That's what the Harris-Walz ticket represents. And if they get their way, then Donald Trump will be there, and we will then be faced with the existential threat to the planet instead, in substitution for their bottom lines. So this is an incredible moment in our history. I launched the Climate Bank with Kamala Harris at Coppin State up in Baltimore, and that's going to be an incredible revolution. In addition to all the tax breaks, I joined her in Boston just last year in order to announce hundreds.
Unfortunately, Senator Markey froze, but we are coming to the end of today. If we can get him back, we'll give him a moment to close out. If not, I just want to say this was absolutely incredible. I hope the enthusiasm was palpable through the screens. Thank you for staying with us from the beginning to those of you who are here at the very end of this. And join our fight. We need you. We're a friendly community. You can tell we're a positive community. We know that the climate crisis can be scary at times, but there's no better antidote for that fear, for that anxiety than taking action, really coming together, sharing solutions with your friends, with your family, with your colleagues, with your broader community, and ultimately becoming a global citizen in this. We can accelerate the transition to clean energy top-down, multilaterally, and we can do things on the ground locally. It takes a top-down, bottom-up approach and all hands on deck, and we will solve it. And the single most impactful action we can take is to elect Harris and Walz into office come November, vote climate up and down the ballot, get excited. We're 88 days out to November. We're a few days out from the DNC. This is the time to get energized, to bring your friends into it, to go to kamalaharris.com/climate voters and to text 3033. I want to make sure I say that right. 303303, 30330, and join us in this fight. It's going to take all of us. It's going to take you. Thank you so much for spending your Friday afternoon with us. More to come. The official launch will be in September. Keep an eye out. Thank you all very much.